Good morning. Thank you all for being here.
Kalau
I
menyala
cannot imagine what a great pleasure it is to look out and see so many people from so many different walks of life here in Malaysia coming together. I told Dr. Anizan that Malaysia is starting later than most Asian countries on SRI. No country has accelerated it so quickly as you have here in this country. So when I was invited, I had to say yes to come and see all of you and to thank you for your interest. The topic which I was given by the organizers is much broader than the one that was just announced by the chairman, so it's rather complex. Haji Anwar said he'd give me a little bit of his time so I can do some justice to this. I want to start with what we consider the most frequently asked question: what is SRI? And these answers represent my understanding. I'm not the authority or dogma on this. But these are my understandings. But first I emphasize SRI is not a thing. I like to use the word as an adjective, not a noun. SRI methods, SRI approach, SRI philosophy, but not SRI. SRI is not a thing. And there is an ideal type of SRI which is based upon experimentation and scientific evaluation, but SRI is better seen as a matter of degree rather than of kind. Don't ask, is it SRI or is it not SRI, but rather, to what extent does it represent SRI principles, practices, and ideas? These are the trials which first persuaded me that we had something really important. These are two student theses done in Madagascar, 2000, 2001, in two very different environments. Morondava at sea level, tropical climate, poor sandy soils. On Zumakeli is 1,200 meters. Temperate climate, fairly good soils. We got the same kinds of results. I'll show you the data in a second, but if you did conventional practice on the left, flooded soils, chemical fertilizer, tree per hill, 20-day seedlings, under 4 different tests with 6 trials each average, you see the level. If you do even 1/4 SRI, you see how these peaks go up 1/2, 3/4 full. The highest one is actually a local variety on good clay soils. The light blue one is a local variety on not so good soils. The bottom one, or third one, is high yield variety on sandy soils, and then local variety on sandy soils. But you see the same pattern of increase. The more of the practices you use, the better. You put them all together, you see quite a different picture. These are the actual data for different combinations, different factorial trials. In this case, we have 240 2.5 by 2.5 meter trials, random block design, replications, all the things scientists want. You see how it goes from 2 or 3 tons depending on soil, up, to 10.35 or over 6 tons when you use the 4. And this wasn't all SRI. We didn't do soil aeration. We didn't do some of the water management. So it could be even better. But this was a demonstration with proper scientific method which says this is a matter of degree. So when we teach farmers, we like to tell them what the ideal is, but they may not do all the practice. That's their decision. We don't tell them what to do. I also emphasize that SRI is not a technology, and also it's not yet finished. It's still a work in progress. Already in the 3 days in Malaysia, I think you're making many interesting and useful adaptations and innovations to improve upon the original ideas. So my answer is, please keep it up. Also, I want to emphasize that SRI is based, it's really an innovation. It's a set of ideas, it's insights, it's a paradigm shift, but it has very practical, real, material consequences. But at one realm, it's in the realm of ideas, the other realm is on the ground and below the ground. We emphasize it's based on scientific foundations, but it was developed empirically, not by scientific theory, but rather by trying, observing, replicating. We want to emphasize there's no mystery, no magic in SRI. It's all very well grounded in practical reality. SRI is a different kind of intensification, not an increased inputs, which we usually understand as intensification, but intensification of knowledge, of skills, and management. That's what we mean by intensification. SRI is something freely available. There's no intellectual property rights, no patents, no licenses, no royalties. Nobody owns it. Someone was asking here, does Fresh Uphoff own SRI? No. Anyone who wants to work on it owns the result of it. So we say it's an open access innovation. My colleague from Cornell, Lucy Fisher, would like to emphasize this is open access. And it's still changing, still growing. It's continuing evolving. We now have brain-fed SRI, not air-fed SRI. We have mechanized SRI, not hand SRI. We have SRI for wheat, for many other crops. So it's still changing. And we're just partway there. It's been developed as practices that work. Very practical, but these continue to evolve. And we now understand most of the principles that can explain these successes. But we still have to keep working on them. We communicate SRI to farmers often as a practice. We should also communicate the principles, the reasons, the ideas behind it, so they will also understand and make their own further improvements. SRI should be both pragmatic and scientific. Not dogmatic, not a matter of belief. This should be a matter of practical reality. Now, how does it work? SRI focuses on improving the environment for rice plants to grow better, rather than emphasizing new or improved varieties. Most modern agricultural research and development has focused on genetics. Improve the genes, improve the variety. But even the geneticists will fully agree we need to understand the relationship between genotypes and phenotypes. I won't embarrass you by asking how many understand genotype, phenotype. So I'll just say, genotype is the genetic potential that every organism starts with. Plants, animals, human beings, when we're conceived, we have a genotype, genetic footprint, blueprint. But how that actually gets manifested depends upon the interaction between the organism and its environment to give a phenotype, which is the phenomenon. So all of you are phenotypes, I'm a phenotype, we're phenomena. We started as a genotype, but we evolve and become a phenotype. And no two phenotypes are identical. You know that for people, same for rice plants. No two rice plants are identical. They evolve in interaction with the environment. So the formula that plant breeders talk about is P. Phenotype is a function of genotype times environment. The interaction. So we don't change the G. We take the G. We modify the E environment to get a better phenotype, P. This is a picture from Cambodia. This is one plant from the middle of the field from one seed. And I met this woman and told her we were using the picture in our PowerPoints and publications. We were very proud of her accomplishment. She looked very unhappy. And I wondered, why? What's the matter? I said, is something wrong? She said, if I had known that you were going to use this picture, I would have gotten my biggest one. She was embarrassed she hadn't shown us her biggest plant. She took this random. That's what one single seed can do if we give the right conditions. This is a picture of a plant that I was given. Swandy and I received this plant from farmers in East Java. 223 tillers from one seed. Now, not every plant does this, but this is the potential that is in that rice seed. This is a picture sent to me from Iraq, from the Rice Research Institute, where they tried SRI methods with different varieties. And you see the difference in phenotype from genotype. Each flock is the same genotype, each set has different phenotype because it was managed younger seedling, wider spacing, not flooding, and bringing out that potential. This is from Cuba. These two plants were planted in the same nursery with the same variety, same genotype, both 52 days old. And one on the right was taken out when it was 9 days old. We planted wide spacing, one per hill, organic matter in the soil. And the 52 days, the plant still in the nursery was taken out for planting, and they compared it with the one that had been put in SRI environments. versus 5, same genotype. So what the methods do is bring about a better phenotype, better phenomenon. How is this achieved? Two basic things. One is we get larger, longer lives, and better functioning root systems. And those of you who work with SRI know from your own experience. And then we get more active and abundant and diverse soil organisms, life in the soil. This you can't see. Or you can see worms. You will see worms. But it's the life in the soil, together with the, again, if you go back to this, that huge root system does not come just because of the plant. It comes because of the support the plant receives from soil organisms, which fix nitrogen, solubilize phosphorus, protect against pathogens. And so that life is facilitated, supported by the life in the soil. Not by nutrients here, but by the organisms. So anyway, this is research from France showing the variety on the left is an upland variety, which should not be irrigated, rather than upland. On the right is an irrigated variety, the French variety. The top picture there on the left is unflooded upland variety. The bottom picture is flooded upland variety. You see how the cortex degenerates and forms these air pockets. So the oxygen can somehow go through the roots to keep the plant alive. If you take an irrigated variety and flood it, you see on the upper right, bigger and better air pockets. So lowland rice varieties, flooded rice varieties are ones that degenerate better. But if you take that same lowland irrigated rice variety but don't flood, you get the cross-section of the root on the lower right. It doesn't degrade, it doesn't degenerate. So the natural condition for the rice plant is not flooding. It has evolved so that some varieties are okay with flooding. They can survive. But then they depend very much on our inputs, especially fertilizers, that make the roots cannot take care of the plant by themselves. So this is the Erie version of intensification. Reichert, Doberman, and George. They say intensification of rice systems implies the disturbance of existing equilibria in the soil by extensive submergence flooding and by elevated levels of agrochemicals used for nutrient and pest management. That's what they consider intensification. They say, in keeping pace with the development of ever higher yielding rice varieties, nutrient management, chemical fertilizer use, risks adversely affecting the agronomic and environmental sustainability of rice plants. That's a very correct statement. I agree with them 100%. But that's not necessary that we jeopardize the agronomic and environmental sustainability if our intensification is different. The SRI version, we don't do that. SRI doesn't intensify the use of material inputs. These are reduced. We put more input of knowledge, skill, management. We work with the existing natural processes and potentials to achieve better phenotypes from available genotypes. And that's why our practices raise the productivity of land and of water and of labor and of capital all at the same time. This is why it took me a while to accept SRI. I trained in economics. I'm going to say there's no free lunch. There must be a trade-off somewhere. But with SRI, we see that all these factor inputs become more productive when we mobilize the life in the soil. So with SRI, we produce more from less seed, less water, less agrochemical inputs, even less labor. Farmers in China and India say over and over again, now once they've mastered the methods, even the hand methods, it's less work than before. Now, as I'm going to discuss, we are moving towards more mechanized alternatives to SRI using the principles. But let's not just say, oh, SRI is too labor intensive. In fact, it can save labor once you understand and use the methods well. This is stated by the president of the World Bank, writing in an Indian newspaper in 2009. Everyone cites India's Green Revolution. But I'm even more intrigued by what is known as SRI, System of Rice Intensification. And I know this is also an area of interest of the Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh. Using smart water management and planting practices, farmers in Tamil Nadu state have increased rice yields from 30 to 80%, reduced their water use by 30%, and now require significantly less fertilizer. This emerging technology not only addresses food security, but also the water security challenge that climate change is making all the more dangerous. These are all lessons for our work. I thank the President of the World Bank for that endorsement. The two paradigms of agriculture that we're thinking of, the Green Revolution paradigm was to change the genetic potential of plants and to increase the use of external inputs, for water, fertilizer, insecticides, etc. It works. It has worked very well in some countries for some time, but it's reaching diminishing returns. And it has negative externalities in terms of soil and water quality, which I think we're now becoming more conscious of. SRI, as a form of agroecology, changes the management of the plants and the soil and the water and the nutrients to promote root systems and to increase the abundance and diversity of soil organisms, to enlist their benefits, and to produce better phenotypes. This picture sent from the Rice Research Institute in Iran to show me if they were seeing when they used SRI practices on the left and compared with conventional practices on the right. And don't look just at the size of the roots, look at the color. The light color indicates good, healthy, vital, living roots. The dark color on the right means those roots are dying or dead. This is from Indonesia, a report from Aceh. After the tsunami, the NGO Caritas brought in SRI. They reported that their farmers who had 2-ton yields before now are averaging 8.5 tons. They say using less rice seed, less water, and organic compost, farmers in Aceh have quadrupled their crop production. That sounds like a miracle, doesn't it? When you first think about it, it seems impossible. But again, we now are understanding how that's possible. Here's a report from an agriculture extension agent in Bhutan, who was trained at their university there. He did studies on farmers' fields, saw in standard practice 3.6 tons. SRI with just random spacing, 6 tons, 25 by 25 spacing, 9.5. And with 30 by 30, he got 10. Now, 30 by 30 is not always the best spacing. In some soils, 20 by 20 is the best. Most often it's 25 by 25, but we should be tested to find out for those soils, that climate, that variety, what is optimum. But the optimum is almost always wider than what farmers have been using. This is Afghanistan, which you may be interested in, where the Aga Khan Foundation introduced SRI. In 2008, 6 farmers tried SRI and they had 10.1 ton average instead of 5.4 with their regular methods on the same soils. 42 farmers the next year averaged 9.3, again versus 5.6. But note this issue. The second year SRI farmers averaged 13.3 tons because they knew how to use the methods versus 8.7 for the first year farmers. So we find that the methods often improve yields over time. So don't just go by your first year's results. Now they could go down, I won't promise they go up, but we usually see improvements. And now in 2010, it's not a good year, but 104 farmers went up to 8.8. Love this picture. This is very different from your Malaysian rice growing. This is 1,700 meters elevation, short growing season. This is SRI field at 30 days. Still not very promising. That's at 72 days, one plant with 133 tillers. And the farmer's yield is 11.56 tons in calculated. So this is Afghanistan. Here's Mali, on the edge of Sahara Desert. First yield was almost 9 tons. There's their nursery for 8-day seedlings. Transplanting on the edge of Sahara Desert. Average yield 9.1 with 53 farmers, carefully controlled, comparison measurements. On the same soil next to the plot was a 5.5 ton, and farmers in the area got almost 5. So we've been able to see time and again that changing the growing environment, timing, spacing, water management, organic matter, has a huge impact. Now,